Meet them again. All right, welcome to the FY21 public hearing on the warrant for this year. So this is a public hearing where public participation is encouraged. I believe the entire FinCom here, is that right, Jean?
Yep, we're all here.
So that's, for those people that don't know me, I'm Rich Eckel. I'm the chairman this year. Jean is our administrative assistant. She's co-hosting with me. She'll be, muting and unmuting people, helping me to run the meeting. There's Peter McManus, who is the former chairman, who's a member, as well as Atlee Thorenson. I think I missed a syllable in there, Atlee, forgive me. And Chris Buck, and of course, Erica Benedict, who are the members of the FinCom. We don't currently have any associate members, so, we'd love that kind of participation if you can join. A couple housekeeping things, not everybody's as familiar with, especially a lot of people have been doing Zoom meetings. For those that haven't been, try to raise your hand rather than just unmuting and piping in. We'll take your questions. You can even just type the questions into the chat. And I believe, actually, I don't know, I guess we don't have chat, probably by design. Yeah, I decided that. Just raise your hand and Jean and I will see it and let you know when you can speak, okay? So before we get started, does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. If you have questions, again, just raise your hand. This is being recorded by Stow TV and also broadcasting live on Stow TV. So I just want to make everybody aware. So I wanted to sort of start out. We actually had a FinCom member, former FinCom member, pass away recently. Paul McLaughlin, who had some failing health in the last year or so, and we just got news this week that he had passed away. So that's sad for me personally because I really enjoyed Paul, and he was a great, mentor, and frankly a force. I mean, when he first joined, started participating in public events that I was aware of. He joined the building committee, the fire station building committee, and he was so committed he actually drove to different fire stations all over Massachusetts and New Hampshire to get square footage and to participate. And even though he wasn't a voting member, he really held the room when he spoke. And we were able to coax him onto the finance committee, and he was, a great member. He somebody that challenged the status quo and the thinking and brought, he made, Peter was saying before the meeting started here that he really, he made us all want to work harder and have integrity, and which we all bring to it. He just sort of raised the bar. So if you wouldn't mind, let's just have a quick moment of silence for him. Okay, thank you. And that's certainly not to minimize. There's lots of people that unfortunately are sick and passing away right now. But this is just somebody that I know and the committee knows. So the way the meeting's going to go tonight is we're going to look at the warrant. We'll go through them one by one. I'll read out the warrant information, and then if people want to discuss it, they can. Once we're done going through the warrant, the FinCom closes the public hearing, and then we move into our public meeting, which isn't recorded. We deliberate here in a public meeting setting, so you can feel free to stay on, and we will disseminate the what happened in the meeting in minutes. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. If anybody, I know there's some selectmen on the meeting here, so if I'm doing something procedurally wrong, please chime in. Okay. Or Peter or Atlee or some of the other people that have been around for a while. So this is a draft warrant from May 9th, the latest one that we have. So it starts out with reports for selectmen. A lot of this is pro forma stuff that the Board of Selectmen has to go through. They accept reports from special committees and from boards. And then we get to the first article of substance. And we have the wage and salary schedule from fiscal year 2013. So again, this is the opportunity for the public to share ask any questions or share any feedback. So please chime in if you have any questions. And actually, let me just share let me change the way I'm sharing here so we can. Here we go. Share desktop 1. There we go. Okay. So Article 3, this is the schedule of all the positions. It shows the minimum in the different steps for each of the positions. In fact, Jim Salvi, if you're comfortable commenting, Gene, can you unmute him? People have asked for us to disseminate this draft warrant. I actually have it in pieces, and I'm sort of loath to distribute something that the selectmen are publishing. Should I direct them to Maureen to get a copy so that they make sure they're getting the freshest copy?
I guess that's. Can you hear me, Rich?
Yes, we can.
I guess that's a good idea. I consider it to be a public document, frankly, but I think the real concern is making sure that whoever's asking for something gets the latest version.
That's what I'm concerned about, yeah.
Yeah, so just to make sure of that, I know Bill made some last minute minor changes as late as yesterday afternoon, so that's probably a good idea.
Okay. All right. So so at this point, does anybody have any questions about any of the salaries that you see here? Anybody raising their hands, Gene?
Nope.
Peter is.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
I can do it. I am Peter. Go ahead, Pete.
Very good. I just got an email, which I don't know if you sent it out or Jean did. Maybe you already saw it, from Linda, saying that she's going to amend her article to include expenses for mail-in voting that's expecting to happen, and possible additional staff to get that done, to cover that.
Yeah, it was $6,700. Is
Yeah.
that what she was? Yeah, I saw that email. Thanks for bringing that up.
That's for the mail portion. Other than that, I have no questions on it.
Right. So if I saw the email thread from Bill, his response was that this has been recommended. We can make I believe a floor motion,
Right.
or it's likely to be a fall town meeting, likely to be one. So the budget can be amended or whatever procedure there is to fund that at that time if that's necessary.
Well, I believe her email says she plans to move this at this town meeting for the additional expenses.
Okay. Yeah, and I think this was regulatorily driven too, right, Peter? She said that.
Yeah,
The state's.
There's legislation pending that requires us to mail all ballots for both September primary and November election. Cost $6,700 to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Rich, Ellen or Mike has a comment or question.
Yeah, hi,
Okay.
this is Ellen Sturgis, 12 Canterbury Road. I'm just concerned, we can't really comment on the warrant since it wasn't distributed. Even a draft wasn't distributed. So I feel like I just want it to be recorded in the record that to have a public hearing on a document that no one publicly has been able to see has some serious limitations. You're scrolling through very complicated, very complete schedules, and we've had no chance to look at them. So I would love to comment on them, but there's no time. So that's all.
Yeah, I share that concern. We just got this, I think, on Sunday. In fact, we got these articles, I think, yesterday.
So I would suggest that in the past, I mean, we've been doing this for several years because the previous town administrator's assistant required FinCom to meet before they printed the final warrant. But the reality is the reason that there's a hearing is that the FinCom is fully informed before town meeting. The hearing shouldn't come until after the FinCom has a chance to review the warrant, ask their own questions, and then bring it to the public. So I'm hoping going forward that we can sort of update this schedule, because I mean, I feel really bad for you guys just having received the document and then you're supposed to be defending it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I feel the same way. And we've voiced that concern to the selectmen, and the process did improve from last year, much to Maureen's credit. The Board of Selectmen secretary, she put together a whole calendar. So I don't think she got this from folks at the town hall until this week. So we didn't actually get this particular article until I think yesterday. So yeah, I'd like to see that improved too. But we do have the FinCom has another week. It's something we're going to talk about at the end of the meeting. We may have another public meeting, not a hearing, next Tuesday, because we're likely not going to get through all of our recommendations tonight because, again, a lot of this we're seeing for the first time.
Rich, Atlee has something to say.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Atlee.
Thanks for your commentary, Alan. I would like to say that obviously the Finance Committee is aware of the various different articles. We've seen them in one form or another. And I think maybe we should do what we have done in the past year where our chair would go individually through each article. The following of this meeting, we will be voting on or going and voting post the public input here on the particular articles. I'm not sure that this is any different, for sure it's not different from what we've done in the past. And this is always seems to be a pushed motion into it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
We are trying to make this work for everyone here. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Jim,
Okay. So,
Just
yeah,
to
go ahead,
comment, thanks, Rich. Just to comment very briefly on that, although I think I might repeat oddly, this process has been imperfect for at least 15 years since I was on the FinCom. As you know, there's a lot of pressure between when the warrant has to get published on one end, when the warrant articles are submitted on the other end, and on the somewhat rigid and archaic process that you guys have to follow for your public hearing. There tends to be like a window of only a few days in most years. I think you were right that because of concerns raised by the FinCom in recent years, it has gotten a bit better. Maureen has, at an early stage, publishes a calendar, which hadn't been done in prior years, and pretty much sticks to it. And then what happened this year? Everything got thrown out the window. and the warrant got reopened and just closed fairly recently. So like Otley said, we're all kind of doing the best we can this year.
But there'll be still plenty of time to consider it. And there's other, well, the FinCom will have other meetings if you want to comment here. And of course, the selectmen have a meeting coming up on the 26th, although I guess technically they don't have to take public comment, but I've never seen Jim say no, at least in my experience. Thanks, Jim. Okay, so let's move on to Article 4. This is the...
Yeah, muted.
Peter?
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, sorry.
Now, the timing's always been tight on this, of course. But I'm unaware of any other time where a warrant hasn't been distributed publicly. This is a public meeting not for us to tell what we know. We're supposed to be taking input. So as Atlee mentioned, I mean, we've seen these numbers for months now. They've changed slightly and things have been added, but I wasn't aware there hadn't been any distribution of the warrant. So when is our deadline for?
Monday, the 18th.
It's I don't know. I mean, it's possible we would hear some input that would influence a vote. I think in most things, I've already, understand how I'm going to vote, but the purpose of this meeting is for public input, and I guess so. That one's got a very good point. Not sure what the fix is, but and I don't think, going through it is really a fix, but I guess that's what we have to do at this point, but I don't know if we can have some leeway to, have people follow up or something. I think you're muted now, Rich.
Thank you. I think perhaps in another forum we could discuss this. I think the challenges, and I'm sure Jim can help us, enlighten us, maybe at another time. But there's a draft warrant, and then sometimes I remember we get a draft warrant every couple days. This year it's been mostly baked when we got it. So it's kind of a moving target. So I don't even know if I was to distribute every draft warrant that I got. That could sometimes be 15 or 20 copies, and then which version are you using? So I think that's one of the challenges. But let's table that conversation for now, and let's, if we can, move through the rest of the warrant. And you'll get a printed warrant in the mail, and there might be an opportunity to get one before it's mailed out. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So as we move from the Article 3 to Article 4, these are the salary and expenses. Working from memory, just to give a general commentary on the budget, I'm basically repeating what the town administrator had said when he recommended the budget. It's the total budget is reducing by 2%, almost 2%, and the general municipal budget, which is the part of the budget that we control. By we control, I mean what Bill has authority over, the town administrator and the board of selectmen specifically, which represents about 22% of the budget, if I remember correctly. That is increasing by 3%. The other big, that's the whole budget, even though it's reducing by 2%, the school budget's going up by 1.37%, the Neshoba Regional School District, which is pretty amazing. They went down by $40,000 $5,000 last year, and this year they're going up by only 1.37%. That may change, as Bill remarked in the last selectmen's meeting. They have considerable state aid that they get for to run the schools, so we don't know what the budget is going to be. Bill had mentioned just last night in the meeting that I think revenues were forecasted to be 7% above last year, and they came in, I think, at either 30 or 50% last year in just the last month. So, I mean, that's, if that happens for 2 months, that's like 1/12 of the state budget that needs to be made up in the shorter amount of time. So he wants to stay put with all of this. Other budget drivers were the Neshoba Regional School District, the Minuteman Vocational School District, which went up by 20% approximately, which was driven mostly by enrollment and also by the bonding of the debt for the new high school. And then, of course, in terms of the general municipal budget, that went up by 3%. There was a 2.5% cost of living adjustment, and a couple merit raises, which we'll get to. I'll scroll through that and point that out. And then, of course, like regular things like insurance and so forth has been increasing. Healthcare. We're going to produce a warrant or report that details some of that detail that Bill had mentioned with some other context that we've noticed.
Rich?
So, yes?
Ellen or Mike has something to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Never me.
Yeah, it's Ellen again. I just had a question since you had it on the slide around the town administrator's budget. Since we are hiring a new town administrator, I would have expected to see those numbers come down. And I'm also worried that because this is a public document, someone applying for the job is going to think they're going for a higher salary than, Bill's been around for a long time, so obviously it's a higher salary than someone coming into the new. So I'm just wondering if there's been consideration to bring that down going forward.
Well, let me make a quick comment, and then if Jim wants to comment, he can. But I think they budget for the position, and then I think when they hire the person, they normalize that according to some pay schedule. So I don't get into the weeds. We'll find out about that when and if they hire somebody. I guess you're on the committee, Alan. I think the one thing to note here is that there's an assistant town administrator wages line here, which is new. It's about $9,000, and that is for Bill Wrigley to remain and help transition 8 hours a week, I believe, on average. So, not to put you on the spot, Jim, but if you had something to share, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, you don't need to say anything.
No, only that, yes, I would expect that when we hire, the town administrator's salary that's one of the ones that are individually negotiated, like the police chief, fire chief. I certainly would expect that since we'll be obviously hiring someone with far less experience than Bill has, that it'll be significantly less, I would hope, than the amount that's budgeted, but for purposes of budgeting, we carry it at its existing figure. And I'm glad you mentioned the item for the part-time transition for Bill to reduce any confusion there.
Yep. I personally think that's a great idea. Okay, so Finance Committee, our wages were the same. We did, if you notice, we did increase some spending. So, the budget is very complex. We've been trying to reverse engineer it and figure it out on our own. And I think it's time that we got a little more formal training. And I don't know if it'll happen this year, maybe it'll be virtual, but there is a seminar that we can take to improve our analytical skills here. So that's why you see the increase in expenses here. So the town administrator supported it. Seems like the Board of Selectmen accepted it too. So the town accountant is one of the merit raises here. You can see that the increase is more than 2.5%. So I would point that out. The other increases that are above the 2.5% COLA or a scheduled increase, there is the step schedule for some of the employees, if not all of them. Is the principal assessor and the assessor's clerical or assistant assessor, I think might be her title. I don't quite know the reason why that is, other than the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen recommended that. I do know that, well, let's just leave it at that. Let's see. You can see the treasurer collector's salary did come down a little bit because Pam Landry had moved on. And I think that was it. Everybody else was at 2.5%. Anybody from the FinCom can chime in, or other people in the know. I guess it's I guess another line item to point out is we're hiring a new police chief, so this is probably along the same lines as the town administrator. This number could change. This is the budgeted number. And unfortunately, that's something else we have to, another transition has to happen this year. Right. Just going to scroll down and see if I can point out anything else. Anybody can chime in if they have a question. Group insurance, you can see increased by $30,000. Insurance and bond, not too much, about $6,000. Here we can see the school district's budgets. This is a 1.37% increase. And Minuteman was a 20% increase, again, driven both by bonding and by increased enrollment. Our debt is just under 2.1 million. And if you notice, that's a pretty big drop off from 2.6 million. That's driven by the Hale School debt being retired, and we also got some school building assistance, I think it's called, from the state to help pay for that. It was about $540,000, and so you can see it's a big difference, right? It's $600,000 or just about $600,000 less in debt service, which is a good sign, as we're probably gearing up to spend or borrow some more money, depending on what the public wants to do. All right. If there are no more questions, I'm going to keep moving here. So we just went through the wage and salary schedule. We went to the general budget. In terms of the reserve fund, this is the reserve fund is the finance committee's amount of money allocated to us in case there is any unforeseen or emergency spending that needs to happen. Examples in the past are when a veteran comes into we've got a new veterans coming into town periodically, and they the way it works is the town cover if there's any additional expenses around, say, health or other things, the town pays for that in advance, and then the state reimburses us. So that's one example that came to us. Other times, you know, I think the Hale School's stove broke, and they literally ran it to like the very bitter end, and they needed a new stove. They just were not going to make it to the next town meeting, so we appropriated money for that. I haven't looked at the latest amount of reserve funds we have left, but I believe we were well over 50%, maybe more. And last year we used just about every dollar. So we asked for a $10,000 increase, which is the first time it's happened in at least 10 years. So that went from 70,000 to 80,000. In case people are wondering what happens to those dollars if they're not spent, they go back into the general fund, which becomes part of free cash. Any questions on Article 5 or anything I missed from anyone? Anybody from FinCom, if I missed anything? Okay, Article 6. So this is, if people aren't familiar with revolving funds are basically, rather than, like in opposition to with the reserve fund, where at the end of the year the money goes back into the general fund, with revolving funds, money that comes in goes into a special account, if you will, called the revolving fund, and then there's credit and debits against that. And so that this is for the inspection fees that happen in town, and so it's transferring the money, I believe. Yeah, shall be credited all permitting fees received for wire, gas, plumbing, fire alarm permits, weights and measures, to a limit of $50,000. And so that's what it's allowing this to do. Any questions? By the way, these are all part of the consent calendar. So we can, at town meeting, what often happens is that the moderator says, hey, would you like to consider these all at once? Because a lot of them are on here every year. And we kind of blow through all of them in an expedient way. But we'll slow down a little bit here in case people have any questions. So we have, was there a question? No, okay. There's a revolving fund for ALS support services. It limits it to $10,000 for the fire department. The same for the SWIFT 911. In the amount of $4,000. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not Article 8 is not a revolving fund. This is a regular raise and appropriate, or could be appropriate and transfer. This gives the flexibility to the Board of Selectmen and town administrator to expend money towards the SWIFT Reach 911 notification system, which I think is commonly referred to, or I know it to be, when they there's an emergency, they can dial out and tell people in town if somebody's missing or something like that. Okay, keeps moving on here. Weights and measures, appropriating $1,000 to be able to regulate that. There is money that going on to Article 10, there's money that the conservation board and administers in a conservation land management account, and they transfer money into that periodically, or not periodically, every year, to administer land management things. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Article 11, a similar situation here, where money is transferred from the Wetlands Protection Fund, and it's handled by the Conservation Commission as well, to basically perform their duties under the Wetlands Protection Act. A similar article in Article 12, which adds money into the Conservation Fund. In this case, it's $5,000. And that's sponsored by the Conservation Commission. The assessors are sponsoring this Article 13, which is update of property valuations. So this is how the assessor figures out what everybody should pay in their property tax bills. And in this case, it's $41,300.
And excuse me, Rich, this just covers their expenses in the execution of that assessing. Is that correct?
Pretty much. I'd have to look into a little more deeply, but you know, if anybody has any other comment, they can let me know. But it's basically, you know, I think I have to go back and look and see if this is more than previous years. I know periodically, I think it might be every 3 years, the state audits us, or the Department of Revenue audits and makes sure that, you know, what the property valuations are, you know, within acceptable limits. And every year, I know the assessor submits the valuation to the Department of Revenue, you know, with the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. And that goes into approving the tax rate. All right, because there's two parts to the tax rate. One is the, you know, your valuation, and there's two parts to your tax bill. One is the tax rate, and the other is your individual property assessment. And so this is all in support of that. Okay. Article 14, binding and repair. This is, you know, the town clerk needs to preserve records for posterity and also for regulatory reasons. So we put $200 into that just about every year. So this is money this is a special account to do road machinery repair and for repair of private ways. So we put this, or the highway department puts this in here every year to make sure that our road machinery can be maintained properly, and that there's also money put out there for repairs of private ways. Article 16. So this is the chapter. We get money from the state called Chapter 90, Chapter 90 funds, and it's to authorize, this particular one sponsored by the highway department, and it authorizes the Board of Selectmen to basically take care of our roads using $283,000 that we get from the state. Article 17, from the Board of the Health, we have a hazardous waste collection, and we contribute $6,000 to allow people in town to bring hazardous waste up to Devon's, up by air, to get rid of hazardous chemicals and so forth. That's part of like a regional agreement. A lot of people are, towns around us are part of that. We also have a municipal solid waste. I believe this is so when the highway department finds trash around town, they can collect it and get rid of it, and then I'm sure it has to deal with. Yep, you can see it right there. The purposes of renting a container and disposing of solid waste, which has been dumped on town lands and roadsides. Article 19, a public health nurse, $8,600 to pay for that. We actually are part of the Neshoba Nursing Services, which provides public health nursing for Stow residents, and it also helps, you know, manage things like communicable diseases. Moving on to the Stow Cultural Council, this is an increase in their budget. It was previously, I think, $2,000 or $3,000. And since we're not having Springfest this year and some other things, it's also allowing them to use previous funds to pay for that. Stow TV. So this looks like a big number, $160,000 in expenses. So Stow TV actually gets a lot of their, if not all of their funding, from the local access channel committee. So every time we pay our bill to Comcast or FiOS, they take a little bit of money and it goes into a fund that is sent back to town to provide public TV and stuff like that. And there's some other funding, but basically, my understanding, and one of the FinCom members or other town officials can chime in, I believe that Stow TV is virtually self-sufficient. Holiday decorations, we pay $5,000 to light the Christmas tree and a bunch of other stuff around town. So Article 23, so this is the Employee Educational Incentive Program. So this is sponsored by the town administrator. So as you might be aware, if you work in state government, or you work as a police officer or a fireman, you have some sort of educational educational pay if you increased your education. So the way it works for town employees, so there's equity, is they get on top of their salary, they get a 5% increase if they have an associate's degree, a 10% increase if they have a bachelor's degree, and a 15% increase if they have a master's degree. We have some recommendations on this that we'll raise in a different forum. We'd like to see this actually go on the individual budgets of each one of the departments rather than having it lumped into one article. Because when you see the salaries in Article 3, it doesn't actually reflect what their actual salary is for certain people, because if you have a master's degree, you're actually getting 15% more than what's actually being reported on the wage schedule. But this is the way it's historically been done. It actually went down this year, which I think reflects some of the retirements that we've had. So we'll keep moving on unless anybody has any questions about the educational incentive program. Okay. Article 24, this is $25,000 to audit the financial records. I need to double check if this is a perennial one. I think it is because it's on the consent calendar, but I know that Pam Landry had left, or I'm sorry, had not left. She retired. And so I believe this is for the regular routine audit, rather than when a person that runs a financial department, often after they retire or leave, there is traditionally or customarily an audit that's performed just to make sure everything is in order. I believe that's already happened. So we can follow up on that if people are interested to know more.
But Rich, just to comment on that, that is actually that special audit upon the retirement that was funded this year when she retired out of the reserve funds from the finance committee.
That's right. We helped pay for that, right?
Right. So this is the regularly scheduled audit, finance audit for the town.
Okay. Thanks, Hadley. All right, so we move on to Article 25. The Treasurer Collector sponsors this one. So this is the transfer to the OPEB Trust Fund. So the OPEB Trust Fund, OPEB stands for Other Pension and Employee Benefits. So town employees pay into a pension, and when they retire with a pension, they also get health care and other pension and employee benefits. Kind of encompasses everything that I believe is not a pension. And so that currently that is underfunded. But we are in I think virtually every community in Massachusetts has not fully funded their liability here. The town administrator's policy on this has been sort of pay as you go. The finance committee was more, we thought we should be trying to get to where it's funding itself. And so this is the town administrator engaged a consultant that did a bunch of analysis and determined, much to the town administrator's credit, that we were funding it about at the right amount, that it made sense to service the liability year to year, but also increase funding it for the future. So this is, a contribution that has been figured out and scheduled, and it's adjusted just about every year. I believe we pay this consultant to update the model and make sure that we're going to be on track to funding it. One thing to mention is when the town administrator was talking, and maybe we'll come back to this, but some of these special articles like this one, I believe, are things that if things got really rough financially, that the town administrator would consider not funding after capital items. Any questions about the OPEB trust fund?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, on your last point there, we are seeing a fair number of towns choose not to fund this, and even some that have, using the same funds that are already in the budget and transferring them elsewhere going forward. So definitely to our credit that we're continuing to fund this, and I'm sure Paul McLaughlin will love that.
Thanks, Pete. And I would agree. That was a concern of his. Okay. Article 26. So this is an article near and dear to my heart since I live here in Harvard Acres. And almost 10 years ago, the well in my neighborhood failed, and 180 homes or so had to dig wells, and the state lent lots of people in my neighborhood money to dig wells, and the town administrates those loans, and this is to transfer the money that the town collects from the residents as part of a betterment loan that goes in their tax bill, and there's a small administrative fee. I think it's like 1% for the town to do that, and it's just the 10 years is just about up. So that'll be rolling off my tax bill, and soon this article won't be in the warrant. But we were thankful the town. I was personally thankful the town could do that. Any questions on Article 26? It's just a transfer. Okay. Article 27 is water system expenses. So we have a public water supply. And so this allows Craig Martin, the facility manager, to spend money to make sure that the water's clean, not only for the town building, but since the water goes to other people, other entities in town, like the First Parish Church. We got to make sure that the water is clean and tested appropriately. Article 28, small purchases fund. This is something that the Board of Selectmen, town administrator is putting forward for the Board of Selectmen. I'm not sure exactly what they have in mind, but that's what this is. This article is for. Article 29, Lake Boone water quality remediation. It's $12,000 for the town, or the Lake Boone Commission specifically, to do weed control and other things related to that. Yes.
Jim Selvey has something to say.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Um,
I actually lowered my hand. It was just on the small purchases fund. We applied some of that last year because it had accumulated a balance. We applied some of it to the Lower Village project. Typically, what we've used it for is as an engineering fund with the planning board. They have a similar fund of, I think, $10,000. There are some unexpected engineering expenses, usually that they've incurred. We help out with that. That's what I believe it's been used for in recent years.
Right. Thanks, Jim. Okay. Lake Boone water quality. Article 30, this is from the planning board. It's $15,000, I believe, to update the master plan and also to to spend similar money to what the chair of the board of selectmen was saying, to do engineering, planning, and other consulting. So this is, again, part of the consent calendar. This amount shows up pretty regularly here and is used just about every year. Article 31. So this, as most people know, we are part of the Community Preservation Act, the CPA. There's a Community Preservation Committee that oversees the fund. We tax ourselves, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, 3% additional on top of our existing taxes, and it goes into the Community Preservation Fund. That fund is restricted in how it can spend its money on basically recreation, historical preservation, and housing, to basically provide housing for we have to have affordable housing. That's what I'm looking for. So there's also an administrative cost to that, and where they are transferring money for those expenses to be able to maintain all the programs, and it's all according to the Preservation Act. It doesn't directly affect our taxes, this particular one, although we do tax ourselves 3% every year to fund it. Likewise, when the money goes into the CPA fund, it is matched. It used to be matched dollar for dollar. It's gone down over the years. I think it's now somewhere between 25 and 30 cents on the dollar, which is still good. So these are the three areas: affordable housing, preservation of open space, and preservation of historic resources. Open space also means recreation. And so there's a certain percentage that needs to go into each of those buckets every year. And that's what this article is doing. So that's the consent calendar. So when the town moderator says, hey, we're going to vote on one big chunk to accept the consent calendar, that's what that means. So let me pause here. Does anybody have any questions or comments yet before we move on to capital items? Okay. Article 33. I don't know if it's appropriate in this forum or not to have Peter, if you wanted to comment on what the capital committee had recommended with any of these. But as I go through them, if you want to just chime in, that'd be great. So the building department wants to, or is requesting that we have ADA compliant doors on the town building. Pete, did the capital planning vote to recommend this?
On the town building, we did not in a split vote. We've been asked across the board by the town administrator to pare back as much as we could, or at least select some things that might wait, given the uncertainty. So we asked each department to prioritize what they're asking for. And Craig came back with, and said that he thought this could wait. You see another one for the hail exterior doors. This one in the town is just for the handicap access.
Okay.
Based on, almost half of us thought it wasn't a lot of money. Let's go ahead and do it. But it was really based on a prioritization by the building department.
Okay. So before I move further, I think the total amount right now is $764,000. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ellen.
Sorry,
Did
I'm concerned about just seeing ADA compliant doors being postponed. I mean, I know the building isn't ADA compliant now, but I just would wonder why we would put that off. Aren't we opening ourselves up to some possible suit?
It's my understanding that we're, within our requirements, and my personal vote was based on the building manager saying that he could wait on it.
All set, Ellen? Jim, go.
Yeah.
I agree with the concern. On the legal exposure, we won't be exposed to anything that we haven't been exposed to for the past 30 years since the ADA passed.
Great point. Thank you. Okay. So the second item was the building department is putting forth an article to repair the library roof and the HVAC repairs. So, Pete, do you have any color for that? And can you share how the capital committee voted?
Yeah, we voted unanimously to support this. Greg did prioritize this as number one, and that's $40,000 for the roof itself, and the other half $40,000 for the HVAC unit that's on the roof.
Okay. Highway department has a 6-wheel dump truck that has been on the capital calendar or schedule for them for a couple of years, I believe. So this is a big item. It's $243,000. Pete, you got some color?
Well, it's a big item that, as you said, I've been saying for a while now that it's needed, and it convinced me of the need and prioritize this as their number one. And they have a good record of stretching out this equipment as long as possible. So this one has been on the radar. So capital planning is supporting it.
Okay, just chime in if anybody has any questions. So October Lane resurfacing, that's off of, I believe, Harvard Road. So 26,800 was requested and recommended by the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator to be resurfaced at the request of the Highway Department. Pete, how did
capital planning voted to not support this item, again on the same approach of seeing what could be put back. And what happened with the highway department as far as the capital item go is that the culvert on Hudson Road was deemed to be in need of immediate repair, and just getting a lot of traffic with the Gleasondale shutdown. So the highway department prioritized that item, and although they still want to go ahead with October Lane, we voted, we supported both the Hudson Road and the dump truck. And the Hudson Road culvert at 110,000 is a pretty big item, but we were shown the condition and we do support that, but we have to wait a year on the October lane.
Okay. So Pete covered the other request by the Harbor Department for $110,000 to replace the culvert on Hudson Road. The planning board has a request for $30,000 for complete street projects. The complete streets projects, if I characterize it properly, is basically making our streets safer for both pedestrians and bicyclists and cars. And so $30,000 basically makes sure projects are shovel ready so that we can then go and get grant money to complete these projects. Did I go about saying that right, Pete?
Well, it's for oversight of projects. The Complete Streets is a state program where we submit a list of smaller type projects that might not, might stay under the radar, and also that might directly, there's an emphasis on bicycle and foot traffic safety with this as well. So the state funds the project fully, the ones they select. And this is an oversight, to hire a consultant to oversee the completion of the projects. So it's, and Jim's probably got a little better direct knowledge on it than I, but this is for in the current year, there's a couple projects that are ongoing. This is going forward was for some projects that I believe came down to kind of signage. And we had asked, Jesse would, if the possibility of putting this off. And we were told that, he may even pull it or he was amenable to, in a difficult year to maybe putting this one off. Just because the particular projects going on at the moment were smaller in nature.
How did capital planning vote on this?
Voted to not support this.
Okay. Hey, Jim, I see your hand raised. Did you want to share some more color commentary?
I did, but Peter hit what I wanted to say at the very end there. This $30,000 was for signage for bicycle traffic. It's difficult in our town to do bicycle projects because our streets are so narrow. We don't have the room for bike lanes, bike boxes, some of the usual infrastructure. So we want to do some bike signage, but recognizing the fiscal constraints of this year, Complete Streets recognizes that it probably shouldn't go forward with this one. And I guess acquiesces would be the right word in capital planning's recommendation not to approve it. They haven't formally withdrawn it, though.
Okay. So there's a recommended amount of $61,000 for a new police pickup that includes a laptop and a radio. The police department has a regular schedule of purchasing a new car just about every year. They skipped it, I think, 2 years ago. So, Pete, I believe the cost came down on this.
I saw the same emails as you. I don't have it in front of me, but maybe Jim has the number. But capital planning at our last meeting did not vote on this, and looking for more information, which we've gotten a fair amount of, but been no vote taken by capital planning on it yet.
Yeah, I think the cost, the latest quote came in closer to $50,000. So that's an improvement.
That's right.
Okay. Moving on to the Neshoba Regional School District, the Hale, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, Hale has a bunch of HVACs that really weren't good, and they've had to replace each one of them. Is that right?
That is correct. Now, there was a compressor system put in approximately 5 years ago, not much more than that. A lot of problems with it. And of the 6 compressors, 4 have already been replaced, and this is to replace the last 2. And hopefully get some air conditioning in that wing.
And how did the Capital Committee vote on this?
Yep. So on this one, we voted to support.
Okay. Number 9, another school-related capital item. Just a reminder, we own the buildings, so we fund the capital items for this, even though the district operates them. So they wanted to reconfigure some office space for a classroom, and they were requesting $82,000 for that.
Yeah, from a classroom or maybe even 2 to convert it to office space. And we voted, capital planning voted to not support that. Not a terrible use of money. They get a fair amount out of it, but just the wrong year for it.
Okay. Number 10 is exterior door replacement. I guess these are in pretty bad shape. How did capital planning, what's the color there, and what did capital planning vote on it?
Yeah, so this is, I believe, year 1 of a 3-year project, all the exterior and then all the interior doors. And when we asked them to prioritize it, this came back as a higher priority. And we saw plenty of evidence that, there's a lot of rust and it's almost unsafe. So we did vote to support this to go ahead this year with the exterior doors. And it should be a similar amount for the next couple of years.
Okay. The last one is a water tank repair. This one's always been pretty interesting to me because they actually put divers into the water tank, actual people with scuba masks and everything to repair it. And they did a repair and then they had to go back and repair it again. So they've actually already expended the money, and this is to pay off the bill or replenish the funds that the Neshoba Regional School District paid to repair that. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
You threw me a little. I don't know exactly if it was the Neshoba Regional paid for it, but anyway, work was done last summer and already paid for, so this is to reimburse for that at the Hale School.
Okay.
Then we voted unanimously to support it.
Okay.
It's already been spent. So.
Right. So I believe, so this was 764. Do you have the total amount that capital planning recommended for passage?
I do not have that number.
But it's approximately 600,000. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
Well, we were not supporting, my list right here doesn't have the police cruiser on it because we didn't vote on it. But we're not supported 30,000 for the complete streets, 15,000 for the town building doors, 26,800 for the October Lane, 82,250 for the classroom reconfiguration. Whatever that comes up to, you take out.
Yeah, it's roughly about $150,000. Okay. Any questions on capital items? All right, let's keep moving. So the town administrator requests, looking ahead to their legal needs, is requesting $50,000. I believe that increased this year. Article 35 is $4,000 to purchase a trailer for the cemetery department. I'm guessing why this is not on the capital calendar or the capital schedule is because it's not over $10,000. Did you guys review this with cemetery at all, Peter? Did that?
No, it's not. It's 10,000. Didn't reach the $10,000 limit. And similar, the Mike's SMOT proposal is coming up later. We didn't review because it doesn't have a useful life of 3 years. It's a shorter term program. So those are the two criteria and two different reasons to not review these.
Okay. Article 36 is the construction and maintenance of water holes for firefighting operations. I believe this is a regularly funded effort for the fire department to make sure that all the little water places around town for the fight fires are kept clear. That's for $5,000. Shared housing services. This is sponsored by the Stow Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, or SMOT, and it's for the amount of $12,000 to contract with Hudson for the purposes of procuring affordable housing related services regionally. So this is part of our commitment to affordable housing in the area, which is, of course, part of our perhaps moral interest, but also for, there's state guidelines to try to meet that. Mike Kopinski, who's head of SMART. I'd love it if you chime in.
I just happened to walk back in the room. I was cooking, but I came back in the room. So just at the right time. So this is what we have been doing this for about 8 years now, I think. And this was last on the town meeting ballot 2 years ago, and we put about this much amount of money in, and it lasted 2 years. This allows us the monitoring services that allows us to protect the units that we currently have, so that we don't lose things through foreclosure, etc. But also there's some legal stuff that needs to happen every year with letting folks in those units know what their responsibilities are, and those folks do this. This is a group that the Regional Housing Services group that has now expanded to 7 towns with and there are 2 more towns coming in, Maynard and another town next year. So anyway, it's something we've done for quite a number of years.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to Article 38. Thank you, Mike. Veterans benefits. So we have a veteran service officer in town, and this is to appropriate money to provide for veterans benefits that are expected, as opposed to the example that I mentioned earlier with the reserve fund, which happens from time to time to support our veterans. Article 39. So we send, I believe it's 1 student to the Norfolk County Agricultural High School, which is down in Norfolk, Massachusetts. And the cost to send that student there, including transportation, is $50,000. So this is what that particular article appropriates money for. I guess it's notable to mention that this is considerably more than we pay per student at the high school, which is likely in the $20,000 a year, but not that far off from we pay at Minuteman, which is estimated to be around $40,000 a year per student. but it's basically double what we pay at the Neshoba. Okay, Article 40. So this is the Aspet River Water Chestnut Control, ORS. I forget exactly what this stands for. Something Aspet River. But they basically, I think this is volunteers that go out and get rid of invasive water chestnut plants in the Aspet River. And the money is to help them to administer that. I don't think it may pay for like a volunteer coordinator, but it's a very small sum, and you know that's what the $2,300 is for. Okay, Article 41 amends the general bylaw. Jim, you can chime in here now, but I think this is simply moving the. Why don't you chime in here, Jim, if you are listening and know exactly what this article is about?
I'm here. Can you? Is this Linda's article? Yeah. So we had a lengthy discussion about this one last night at the selectmen's meeting. The town clerk is proposing something that she has felt strongly about for many years, that the election date for the local municipal election, so the May election, or the election that typically is in May, should be held on a Saturday rather than on a Tuesday. It primarily is because of concerns that the schools have raised for years. They don't like having quote unquote strangers coming into the school while students are there. In recent years, they've been taking some professional development days, but you know, they don't always want to take a professional development day on election day. Oh, Linda's here.
Linda just joined right now. So Linda.
Linda,
Yes,
your timing's amazing.
it's Grammy powers that I have right now. All right. So I proposed.
Hey, Linda, one sec. Jim, were you finished speaking? I'm sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm happy to let Linda take over. Linda, I summarized that it's been a problem for the schools for several years, the strangers. I was about to mention parking, but you can take it from there.
Okay. Yes, there's a concern that with the voters in the school, which has been in the last few years typically locked down during when the kids are in there on a regular basis. And so during state elections in November, they've been taking professional days. And then this year, for the first time for the primaries, they've also taking professional days, or actually a day off from school. So that adds another day to their calendar. And so what this bylaw would do by having the town meeting on a Saturday, you know, the kids won't be in school. There'll be more parking for the voters. It will, you know, we don't have to move to a different location within the school, where instead of being in the music room for the annual election, we will always be using the cafeteria and gymnasium. The consistency of location, I think, is important. I know there was a concern from the selectmen's meeting last night that a concern going from a Tuesday to a Saturday would be a concern, and folks would, you know, forget to vote on a Saturday, or because they have other activities on a Saturday. So I have that concern, but over the last 20 years of doing this job, I've kind of been monitoring the elections and the turnouts, and it's typically what gets people out to vote is the topic, whether it's a budget meeting or contested races. And I think that it would be helpful to try this out for a couple of years and use this bylaw change. I know this year we're going to have a Saturday town election, but this is an unusual town meeting or election, because we're asking everybody to vote by mail. And so you will have a hard time determining if an in-person election would be an issue. So I'm just, like I said, I would be glad to answer any other questions, or anybody wants to send me information about their concerns, reach out. I'd love to hear more things, but basic thing is I think it's a good thing for voters, and it's a good thing for students.
Thank you.
Atlee has something.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Atlee.
I guess my question is, I would understand this change in the absence of the Pompo Community Center. Why can't we just have all elections at Pompo and not use the schools at all?
Oh, hold on, Linda. We'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So Pompo, we could hold our elections at Pompo for an annual town election because we usually have a 10%, 20% turnout. In a November election, we will not be able to handle the volume of traffic in that building. We do roughly 300 cars an hour. And based on the fact that I have to set up over 66 voting booths in for the total number of precincts, I couldn't fit them all in and have everybody there in the parking. The biggest thing is the safety issues. So I could put one precinct there, but then I have to put put a precinct in a school, and I don't want to separate them. Last night there was discussion at the selectmen's meeting about, well, let's move the annual down to Pompo and we'll do the state elections in the school. That doesn't work either really, because every time you move an election, you need to notify the voters that the election is moving. And so it would be very confusing, especially, and if you think that going from a Tuesday election to a Saturday election is confusing, think about having to remember where they're going to be voting. Are we voting at Pompo? Are we voting at Center? We still had people this year going to Hale, and we've been at Center for 5 years now. So that's in a nutshell.
Okay, Ellen.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you. Well, I'm totally in favor of this, moving this to Saturday. I think it's well past due. And one of the other things that was mentioned at the selectmen's meeting was sort of confusing the issue around moving town meeting to Saturday versus town election. Town election, town meeting is a whole other issue. Town elections, it takes people 10 minutes. So no matter what you've got planned on a Saturday, there's plenty of time to vote. So I think that this simplifies things. It'll de-stress the people who have to run the election, as well as the school district and the school parents. And I have one minor question, or maybe it's an edit. When I look at the text on the heading, it says town election date, but the first line says the annual town meeting for the election of officers. So I don't know if I think that's a typo, but I don't know. I think it should say the annual town election, not town meeting. So that's all.
So that wording is exactly how the old text was. So I didn't change that. I mean, I think if we can, there may be something somewhere else that talks about it. So we can ask town council, but I understand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It just looked confusing. I just don't want people to get confused.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mass general law is confusing.
Okay. Why don't I think the other thing that we mentioned earlier, just in case you're wondering, Linda, we're not necessarily looking for any additional comment. I think at this point was you are seeking $6,700 and may make an amendment or a motion rather at town meeting to support a mail-in vote. Is that right?
Yes. Last week through the town's clerk's listserv, we learned that there's legislation for these fall elections that there may be recommending that we mail all the ballots to the voters and have no in-person voting. And if we do that, I have 5,200 registered voters, and to mail ballots to everyone at 65 cents per ballot for 2 elections is going to be roughly $6,700. So I let Bill Wrigley know this yesterday, and he said that his budget was already determined, and if we needed to make amendments, we'd have to do that on town meeting floor or ask for reserve fund transfers next year. It also, that was the number right now based on what I could actually give you for kind of a concrete number. We'll know more after the legislation passes exactly what would be needed. And that's supposed to be done in the next couple of weeks. And there may be changes in my clerical salary line, because that's where the election funding for my workers comes from. So I will keep you posted on that.
All right. Thanks for letting us know and letting the public know.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So let's move on to Article 42. This is amending voting regulations. I don't know a lot about this, but we are asked to make recommendations on these things. So we'll learn more about it. We frankly just found out about it. If anybody wants to chime in with some information, we'd be happy to listen. If not, we'll just keep moving.
Rich, I just wanted to say that the public hearing for both of these bylaw amendments is next week on the 20th at 7 p.m. and it's posted on the website for information for the Zoom links.
Which day is the 20th?
Yeah.
It's a week from today. It's a week from today. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Atlee has something.
Go ahead, Ali.
Can I just get clarity, since we have both Linda and David Waldrath on here? Is this actually an article that the Finance Committee needs to vote on?
So my understanding is the financial impacts are not there, but I believe that under the bylaw, possibly the charter, the FinCom has to make recommendations on every article in the warrant. But I could be wrong in that statement.
Yes, if you look at the Finance Committee, it's either the charter or the bylaw, and I don't remember offhand. Town meeting is not allowed to take action on any article until it's heard a report and a recommendation from the Finance Committee.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll investigate this and have an opinion on it. We keep moving here. There's a zoning bylaw to allow outdoor dining by special permit. This is sponsored by the planning board. This is a new article that we haven't seen yet or just recently got, haven't fully considered yet. But I think the title speaks for itself, allows people to apply for a special permit to the Board of Selectmen and to perhaps get it to allow outdoor dining. And there's a bunch of listed uses here. Let's keep going. Oops. Yep, this is all part of the same bylaw change. Okay. I don't believe I skipped over any. We are now on Article 44. So this article is to recapture funds from the annual town meeting cemetery committee from 2019. I don't know specifically what this is about, so if somebody wants to chime in and offer some commentary, but it looks like there were two different accounts and they want to consolidate those accounts and the amount is exactly, actually, is it added up? Yeah, it's totaling $27,295.74. And and I see it looks like it's going to be for the purposes of surveying and constructing a 6-foot wide, 400-foot long walking and equipment pathway. And it will have trees and shrubs and install irrigation lines. Sounds like a good use of the funds. Moving on to Article 45. This is an article to provide some tax relief to the National Guard and other folks that are in the reserve. Hi, Jim. Did you have something you want to share?
Rich, is this a repeat of one that's in the consent calendar, or is it just very similar?
I don't remember going over this before. Does anybody else remember? I'm wondering. I haven't seen this one yet.
Well, it's possible you and I are looking at different versions. I'm looking at one that I got Sunday.
Does it say May 9th? Was that Sunday?
That was Sunday, I think. All right, it's fine. I can look at this later. The language looked familiar. That's all.
Okay. You're referring to the tax relief or the cemetery committee?
No, the National Guard Reserve tax relief. I have a draft that has it as Article 14 in the consent calendar. I'll check it.
Okay. I'm sure it'll change again. When we make our recommendations for when we send them to Maureen, we do it based on the name of the article, not the number, because it changes frequently.
Okay. All right. Sorry to distract you.
No, that's fine. Better that we're coordinated. So there's some provisions here that I don't really want to comment on because, it seems like it's a pretty good idea since the National Guard's been pretty busy. With respect to Article 46, so this is an interesting article. If I remember correctly from the town administrator's commentary, we need to provide, we need to budget for some unemployment assistance. I guess the way Massachusetts law works, if I could characterize it appropriately, is if somebody, even after they leave the town employment and go to work for another company, organization, if they are then laid off, the state, I believe, or specifically the Department of Employment Assistance, can ask for funding from the former employer, which in which case would be us. And so this is a new item that we haven't seen before on the Finance Committee, if I can speak for the Finance Committee. All right, so tax title proceedings. This is $2,000 to be added to any balance remaining and previously appropriated for tax title proceedings for tax taking and land foreclosure court. So it basically includes costs and legal expenses to deal with that. All right, bond issuance fee. If I can get this to go down. So this is $3,500 for issuing bonds in 2019. I'm wondering if this is still a bill for this year, if it's only from prior years. Go ahead, Jim.
My understanding, Rich, is that it's just for fiscal 19, that there was an error in the calculation of not the fee, not the premium, but the fee. There's apparently a distinction between the two, and that we owe $3,500 for a prior year.
Got it. Okay. Article 49. By the way, if anybody has any questions, please chime in. Thanks, Jim, for that color commentary. Article 49, it looks like we miscalculated a step for one of the police officers, it looks like. And so there's some compensation due to the police officer in the amount of $1,933. All right. Article 50 is the appropriation of a bond premium, so $125,000. Is there a total here? This looks like it's the bill to appropriate for the bond premiums for everything that we bonded recently, which includes the fire truck that we purchased last year. I don't think it's been delivered yet. Jim, yeah, please chime in here.
I just asked about this at last night's meeting because I've only seen this once or twice. When we issue bonds, we enter into the agreement with the investment bank several months or sometimes even a year ahead of time. And everybody guesses at the premium that we will owe based on then prevailing interest rates and our credit rating. Then months later, when we actually issue the bonds, those interest rates may have changed. The premium is capped. It can't go higher than what's agreed, but it can go lower. So occasionally we get a rebate, for lack of a better word, on our premium. And that's what this is. By statute, though, it can't go back into the general fund and be used for just anything. It has to go for other bond expenses. So this is just taking the rebate that we're now due and reallocating it to help pay down other bonds.
Do you know what the total amount is there? I don't.
I would not without doing the math. No.
I'd have to do the math.
Well,
Okay.
I think it's 125,000. I think we're getting a rebate of 125,000
Yes.
and then reallocating it.
That's right. That is. Thank you. I just hadn't read this closely, so yeah, that is what it reads. And then the rest of the numbers in the article are the different bonds that we got the rebates on. Thank you. Okay, so Article 51, in case people weren't aware, apparently there's no language for this yet, but it's we're going to have a commuter rail van from Stow. I think the location is still being determined where it will be from. Again, Jim, if you want to just chime in quick, go for it. But essentially, this will allow, since there's such a dearth of parking at the South Acton train station, you'll be able to park in town and take the van over there. And it's $10,000 for those expenses.
This is something we several of us were working very hard on before the coronavirus pandemic hit, and since then, commuter rail has seemed less important. But the stop will be at the old fire station on Crescent Street. We're trying to explore whether we can find someplace with a little bit more space, possibly one of the churches in town. Just before the coronavirus pandemic hit, we had a meeting with the Council on Aging and got their agreement that we can use one of their vans. And as you said, this $10,000 is to pay the hourly wages. The people will have to pay. They'll pay $1 per ride. And it will hopefully be a cashless transaction.
Yeah, that would probably be good for several reasons.
Jim, is the parking free for riders at the fire station, like people that get on there?
Details haven't been worked out, but the way we were talking about it a couple of months ago was yes, the parking would be free, but then you would pay $1, some token amount for the actual ride once you boarded the van. And we had started to explore those little handheld credit card things that the van drivers could use.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, this is still a portion of the what was it that Kate Hogan got us for a testing grant or something like that, right?
That's exactly right. Last year she got $25,000 for a pilot program. Oh boy, it's been a couple of months since we really talked about this issue. We're doing this in conjunction with MART, but not using their van at this point. And I am hard pressed right now, Otley, to tell you exactly what is happening with that $25,000. But this is part of that. The original idea with that $25,000 was that it would be used to just pay an existing van service to just add a stop and Stow. The existing van service that serves Maynard balked at that because of the expanded development in Maynard, and they didn't think they would have the seating capacity. That forced us to come up with our own solution or abandon the whole thing. And so that's where we are. This is our attempt at our own little pilot program.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just say one thing. My main concern is that this thing's going to sell out on the first day, and that right now we're looking at 4 trips in a 20-person van, 2 to the station, 2 back, and I think we need more parking. The old fire station has barely enough.
Yeah, right.
Jim, do you know what the pickup times were? I took the train downtown for a few years, so.
I can't. We're going to try to hit 2 of the rush hour trains where parking is generally unavailable, and I think we're going to try to hit the 708 Express and the one right after that.
Cool. Thanks.
Because one of the conditions of using the COA's van is that the van has to be back for COA activities by 8 o'clock. And I think that second train is 7:48 or something like that, and it can just make it.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Article 52. I have a spreadsheet here somewhere, but I think I'll spare people. There's some community preservation deed restrictions that were purchased, and there's money that is being returned to the CPA account. So this is we'll rescind the 2003 article, and the money will go back into the Community Preservation Fund, I believe. Or maybe it just restricts. Go ahead, Kathy. Thank you for rescuing me.
Just turn off your volume or leave the room. Sorry, Rich. So this is money that was appropriated by town meeting a number of years ago, with the idea being that we were going to buy restrictions on existing single family housing stock, sort of the lower priced houses, pay that to the owner, get a restriction out of it, and add to our affordable housing inventory, as well as, essentially preserve some of the housing diversity in Stow. And CPC had tried for many years to get the state to approve the program. And there were just, kind of one roadblock after another. And so I think finally CPC has given up. And so there were actually no restrictions purchased with these funds.
Okay, so they were it's a transfer then from something that was reserved, right? Okay. Seems like a good time to do that, given that there's another article.
Hello?
Can you hear me still? Can anybody hear me?
Did you hear me, Rich?
I did, yeah.
So the only audio appears to be your audio is off.
No, my audio's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Rich?
I can
Everything,
hear you.
both of you with audio. You guys are
Yep.
good.
I'm going to lower your hand and mute you, Kathy, okay? You did a good job. Thank you. Okay.
We're having
Thanks for that.
difficulties over here.
It's okay. I think we're all in learning mode. All right. So, Red Acre Road Design Funds. I believe there's some affordable housing that's being considered on Red Acre Road, and that this $25,000 is to explore that. Kathy, if you want to chime in here, or Mike.
Well, Mike's eating dinner.
I actually had some questions for Mike, but it looks like he's not here. So
I can text him. I'll get him back.
I'll follow up with him separately. I guess I'd like to ask that the SMOT give an update to those of us who led the effort to protect the Cornelius property and also to the abutters, because we reached out to them before the town meeting when we purchased it. They were all supportive of the housing project, and they've asked me what's going on with this article.
We can, I guess, revisit if Mike finishes his tortellini or whatever he's eating. There's another article here, so he was going to hang out for that one. So
yeah,
we can
let's try it again.
Okay.
Erica has something.
Yeah, Erica, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say the 25,000 from CPC is funding so that they can go to town meeting with actual drawings that people can look at to be able to understand what the plan is for that parcel of property.
Okay. So it seems like mislabeled as design funds.
So I texted him. We'll try to get him. Oh, yeah. These are design funds for the proposed affordable housing that go behind Cornelius.
Okay. We can come back. Somebody's feedback is chiming in here. I think I figured out who it was. Okay, Article 54. So this looks like there was design funds, $46,000 that were presented or allocated to build the rail trail on Track Road, and this money is leaving the reserved account that was earmarked for that and will be placed back in the general unrestricted CPA bucket. And Article 35, can Erica or Kathy or somebody that has more information share some more information on this?
Sure. So this, different from the money that they're rescinding, is to survey the full width of Track Road. They apparently haven't done sort of like come in with the surveyors and measured out how far on the edges they own, could they, and if they decided they wanted to do something with that strip of road, exactly what that would look like.
And is the idea is to have a multi-use
The hope is that
path.
eventually they're going to come back and ask for money to be able to include this bit of track road onto sort of that bike path that Maynard kind of ends with us. This would add to that bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sounds.
I'll just add to that the goal is to come out of this really with two products. One is a survey so that we really understand what we have to work with in terms of width. And then the other is some conceptual designs to be able to show the property owner, the community, to say, okay, this is what we'd like to do here, and this is how we would accommodate pedestrian use, bike use, and the existing vehicular use of Trek Road, which makes things a little bit tricky there.
Yep. Great. Thank you. This is a transfer or a payment out of the Community Preservation Fund. So it doesn't directly affect our tax rate or our spending for this year, since it's already been taxed and will be allocated out of that fund. Likewise, there's a playground in Article 56 at the Town Center Park, or there is not a playground, and this is $50,000 to purchase and install it. Again, this doesn't affect the tax rate or the spending rather, because we've previously taxed ourselves through CPA taxes, and the money will be allocated over there out of that fund if it's agreed to by the voters.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I see that Mike has joined us, so I don't know if you want to go back now to the other.
Let me just take Atlee's question first. Or Atlee,
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Atlee, did you have a question, or did we just forget to lower your hand?
No, I do have a question on Article 56, and actually I had it for Kathy if she's still there. Can you comment, going forward, we will always have parking at the Town Center Park for people that want to get into the park?
We have, I think it's 12 spaces at the park that the town owns for people who want to use it. And then High Rock Church has now been sold to a new owner. We have their contact information. I just got that this week, so we'll be reaching out to them to talk about shared parking.
But of the existing parking lot, we will always have those 12 spots that you are highlighting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted.
Mike Kapinski, are you, if I said your name correctly, forgive me, are you up on the call now?
So I am.
All right, so let's go back to Article 53. So if you can, Kathy had a bunch of questions, so maybe Kathy Safara could ask her questions and you could add context around that. Does that sound good, Kathy?
Sure. I think I just had two questions for you, Mike, and I'll just do them both and then you can answer. One is I had a question from at least one of the neighbors, just wanting to know what this was. You know, we know that they have all been supportive of the project. I had made an assumption, and we haven't been in touch, but that you would be bidding this out to a developer who would do the design. So I was just surprised to see the town doing it. And then the second question was just whether prior to town meeting, SMOT might do an email update for everyone in the neighborhood, just so that they know what this is that's going forward to town meeting.
So number one, I would say that if folks reach out to you for this, I would ask you them to refer them to us.
Yep.
So that would be good, because we haven't received any. We send out our minutes and our agendas to all the abutters names that we have, and we've been getting, we get occasionally people ask questions about our minutes, etc. But So the point of this is that we are not doing design of that we are going to do we are not going to do an RFP necessarily, but we may do an RFQ in that we would ask for different developers who are of interest to put in their qualifications, and then we will select one or more of those potential developers to put in detailed proposals. What the point of this article is that we have in the past not had very compelling artist renderings of being able to say, well, do we want, a cottage style development? Do we want common wall units? How do we want to cluster these? Do we want to have them spread out more? And our housing specialist Leonardi Ray has done a serviceable job, but not a terribly compelling job about being able to do kind of a picture of what to help people in a public hearing or a public meeting to be able to picture what the different options would be. So we decided that we would need some professional help to be able to make sure that all the options would be attractive and done to the best of their ability. Leonardi has a lot of experience with affordable housing and such, but possibly not in actual, as an architect, actual developing those things. So we wanted to look for someone who could actually do a better job with the art, and these would be conceptual drawings. They wouldn't be things that would actually be going forward to these would be things that we would actually develop, but the idea would be to have a better job of the artistic impressions so that we could have more productive public input sessions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure why the town is spending the money rather than asking a developer to do that design, but I trust you in that regard.
All right. Well, I mean, it's really because when we've left it, well, what we don't want to do is get to the point. Well, there are some potential work. We're working with the planning board to be able to see if there are some ways that you might, and you and I can have a conversation about this separately. About are there ways to avoid doing a comprehensive permit that allows for the towns to have good input into what happens there, but not allow there to be like one deep-pocketed abutter who causes this to last 5 years, for instance. So we're trying to work with the planning board to see if there's other ways to be able to address this. And for that, we think that we need more than a rudimentary set of drawings.
Okay. I'm going to suggest we probably have a follow-up side conversation.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Does anybody on the FinCom have any questions about this?
Yeah.
Thanks for.
Sorry, Mike.
Go ahead, Ali.
This is still about a max of 6 units, as was in the article when this was approved, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, did you have something?
No, I was just saying thank you. I don't hear any other questions.
All right.
And
Hi, Bill.
You can go back to your linguine.
All right. We're done. We're done now. Now I'm done with dinner. So. All right. Thank you. Thank you for soldiering on through dinner. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys had dinner before you got into this. So.
This is just the new normal. I've finished mine now.
All right. Good. All right. If anything else comes up, please. Oh, is there any other articles while I'm on the phone? Are there any other articles you want to hear about?
Yeah, but we're gonna go through them in order, just so because we're easily confused in the FinCom, and
OCD,
if we
right,
go out
exactly.
of order, it'll.
All right. So one of y'all, I'm just gonna step away. I'm gonna leave this open and step away from it. And if you want me to come back, text me.
All right.
Thank you.
Peter, Peter, would you mind taking on that responsibility for us?
I'll be in charge of texting Mike. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
See y'all.
That'll be your ceremonial title. All right. It's 9 o'clock, so we're going to keep soldiering on here. So there is $200,000 from the CPA funds. And yep, one's from the unreserved part of the fund, and the other one's from historical preservations. And I think these are it says in the title they're designed funds. So this is to make this project, quote, shovel ready, I think is the way to refer to it. And determine the cost, the total cost. Okay. I don't hear any comments, so perhaps I characterized it correctly. Okay, so Mike, text Mike. His article is next. I should have looked ahead. So this is the COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Fund, and I think we have new language on this. Jim, would you like to chime in here? Go ahead.
Mike gave me such a detailed explanation today that I almost feel like I can pinch hit for him and we can at least see how I do and then make the determination about whether we need to bother him again.
Okay.
I thought this was my authority here. It's a being...
Oh, is it? You want to do that?
I'm just kidding. I got it. I have it typed. Do you want me to send it to him, or I trust you? Jim.
I mean, I'm trying not to bother him.
Yeah. Why don't you paraphrase for us, Jim?
So basically, because I had a lot of questions about the eligibility, and what this will be is a temporary program for rental assistance only for the months of April, May, and June. And a household will be eligible if their total income has, one, been affected by the COVID-19 crisis. In other words, they can show that their income has gone down with the current pandemic crisis. And their total income now is below 80% of the, I think it's area median income, AMI, for that household size, including all sources, including public assistance and unemployment payment. They are talking about retaining for about $10,000 a HUD-trained certified occupancy specialist to administer it. Obviously, there's a fair number of documents to go through to make these determinations. And some other details, but the payment will be maxed out at 70% of the maximum affordable rate determined by the AMI. So if somebody just happens to be paying a very large rent for a big place, we're not going to be funding whatever the rent happens to be. It'll be capped. There is some negotiation with the landlord, where we expect a lot of this to be, but we expect that under this program, 70% of the maximum allowable rent would be paid by this program, 15% by the tenant, and that the landlord would kick in another 15%. To me, it strikes me as an extremely narrowly tailored program that has some obvious need to it.
Okay.
Mike is with us now. But I'm good with that explanation. But I don't know if anyone else has.
Mike, I tried to save you some work because you gave me such a detailed explanation today.
I think he's on mute still.
I've unmuted.
Oh, great. So I don't know.
Nice job, Jim. That was great.
So yeah, I mean, I think I heard we had a FinCom meeting to hear about this, and sounded like a good characterization of it. Any questions on that? On this article for rental assistance? Oh, actually, one quick question, Mike. Did the total amount grow beyond 300,000?
I hesitate to say this, but it looks like it might be about 55% of that.
Oh, you mean, and this is an authorization to expend it, correct?
This is an authorization to, so the idea of the warrant article is to put $1 in. We didn't really have a great idea of how many of the potential renters would qualify in terms of their income being reduced or lost. So working with TCB as closely as we have, we've gotten a pretty good idea. So the maximum amount would be less than 60% of that. So it would be less than $180,000. So,
Okay.
And so it would only go down from there. And the benefit of doing this in retrospect is that by the time town meeting comes on the floor, we'll be able to give extremely precise dollar amount for what this will be, but it will certainly not be $300,000.
Okay. Yeah, it's the credit and the debits will go right against each other. All right. So let's keep moving here. Thank you for that, everybody. So Article 59 is from the town administrator. It's to, many of us have heard about per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. So I've had my water tested. I had a little bit. I'm filtering it out. The town has some hot spots, which you may have read about. The school, center school. So I'm sure you can read up on it. The town wants to engage a licensed site professional to do environmental due diligence to understand in greater detail what the what is contaminated, I guess is the way to put it. And so the estimated amount, or the amount of money the town administrator is asking for to explore that is $290,000, which is not an insignificant sum. That's what this article refers to. Okay. Article 60. So I'd love a little clarification on this if somebody has it, but this is authorizing the Neshoba Regional School District to spend up to 1.5 million. And I guess my question is, that's not Stow's amount to cover that. Is that right? Perhaps Jim, if you know more about this. Maybe he stepped out.
I'm here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know what you know from the same hearing.
Okay.
I think that this is the total and that this is not our share, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Sorry I put you on the spot like that. I just figured you knew more.
No, that's all right.
If you read the last line, it seems to imply that that's the amount that the district is asking for in total.
Yeah, I'm almost.
If you read the very last line, I can't see it from here, but I had it on another screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that they were asking for 2 million, and one of the other towns asked for it to be reduced, and I think it ended up at 1.5 million.
That kind of makes sense, Rich, because for the district to borrow, it needs authorization from the towns.
Yeah,
I think 2 of the 3 towns. So it's not like this is appropriating our share. It's just giving them the authorization to do the $1.5 million of borrowing.
Yeah, and to Peter McManus's point, the last line here says the school district is asking for funding for the feasibility study to not exceed $1.5 million. So if the study is 1.5 million, Stow's certainly not going to pay the full amount of that.
Also, my understanding that if they do go forward, this would be rolled into any borrowing. So I don't think they're dividing it up by town at this point.
That, yes, I remember that too. Okay. Any questions on that? If not, I think we're actually at the end here. The last article is information about town elections.
Rich, Eric,
Yes.
Erica has something.
Erica, yeah.
Just to go back to the feasibility study, I just texted Lainey and she said that that's not the Stow total number. We are a third of that number.
Right. Okay. Right. That's one of the school committee members on the hotline there to Erica. So, all right. So Article 61 is town election stuff. This is something that the town charter requires, and I think we are at the end. How about that? This concludes the public hearing part of this. Well, before I do that, does anybody have any questions on anything we've covered so far? I think the takeaway we have was if you are interested in getting a copy of the warrant, please email the selectmen. I believe it's selectmen@stow-ma.gov. Make sure you use the plural selectmen, and they will respond with more information about getting a copy of the draft warrant. I can share the schedule that at least schedule I have. So the warrant closed on the 1st. We're having our public meeting tonight on the 13th. We will provide the recommendations early next week to the Board of Selectmen, and then at their next meeting, which I believe is scheduled on May 26th, the Board of Selectmen will vote to accept the warrant. And then on the 27th, the warrant will be sent out for printing, and on June 3rd, people will get their copy of the warrant in the mail. And then I don't remember specifically when the election date was. I think it was the 22nd, and then the election is the following Saturday. Is that right?
Yes.
So if you're looking to get a printed copy of the warrant with our recommendations, and of course, the final warrant, since it is a moving document still, that'll be on or around June 3rd. But feel free to email us at fincom@stow-ma. fincom@stow-ma.gov if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you. Does anybody else from the FinCom have anything before I close the public hearing? Okay. All right. So at this point, we're going to stop recording, and we're going to move into the public hearing part. John Daisy, thank you for going into the office to record this.